Hey friends, welcome back to our channel. After Grand Canyon, we made a pit stop in Flagstaff, Arizona to refuel and do some yoga before we headed over to Sedona. We started out with a few short out and back hikes, and then we found Bear Mountain, which was a longer 5-mile hike. After spending a week at the Grand Canyon, where many of the hikes were labeled as strenuous, but we didn't actually find strenuous, we weren't sure what to expect when the sign said strenuous. But this was definitely up there. There was a lot of very intense scrambling, and it was a very, very steep hike. So I'm glad that we bought extra water and extra snacks. Although I did have a meltdown on the way up, so Well, we made it to the top of Bear Mountain in Sedona. And yeah, it kicked my butt. How do you feel?
I feel worked and good and grateful that you carried the backpack up most of the way.
Yeah, I don't feel good, but I feel accomplished because this view is insane. And now to go back. But we saved the dehydrated meals for just such occasion when we're pooped beyond all belief and we don't want much cleanup and prep.
And we have a watermelon.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Just to show you how steep it was, I know it doesn't look like much, but trust me, it was a lot. But definitely worth it. Such a beautiful hike and an awesome workout. After the hike, we went back to our camp and we did have that watermelon and it felt amazing. We set up the lights in the trees above us. And the next day we headed over to the petrified forest. We were able to find dispersed camping pretty close to the visitor center, so after we set up camp, we headed over to the visitor center to gain our bearings. We did struggle a little bit with wind in that campground, so we decided to relocate the next day. Which was fine because after our initial drive-through of Petrified Forest, we realized that it was a very small park and we could probably see everything there is to see within a day. We drove through the park on the first day, which took about 40 minutes. And then on the second day, all we did was a few of the very short in and out hikes that each took less than an hour, and then we stopped at a few of the overlooks. We saw some petroglyphs. We did try to do one backcountry hike that was called the Blue Mesa Trail. It was listed in their backcountry hiking guide, but we got kind of lost and wound up just turning around and giving up anyway. The next day after we packed up camp, we went back to Petrified Forest and we did all of the overlooks, and this only took about 3 hours. While there were still a few more backcountry desert hikes that we could have done the next day, we both felt pretty complete because we were most interested in seeing the petrified rocks and learning about the science behind how they got petrified, which I'm going to go ahead and let you Google because it's really difficult for me to look back and forth between my phone and my recording app. And probably the biggest highlight too was that we actually got to see not one but 2 collared lizards. The first one that you see in the photos a few slides back was so bright and I was so happy to see it. And the second one was a little bit less bright colored, but it was still amazing that we saw 2 in the same day. I was absolutely enthralled. We saw them in the newspaper that they give out at Death Valley and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're seeing one in person. This picture I just really liked because the road was super windy. This is on, I think, the Long Log Trail. There's a glimpse of that backcountry trail I mentioned. It's unpaved, called the Blue Mesa Trail. Howdy doody campers! We are driving on our way from the Petrified Forest to
National Monument.
it's small enough that you can do it in a day. You could probably do all of the hikes and all of the overlooks in 2 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to the next part of our trip, which is going to be Albuquerque and Santa Fe. We're going to check out the hot springs over there and the Moro National Monument right now. El Moro National Monument right now. But yeah, thanks for following along. We'll see you all soon. When we got to El Moro National Monument, actually everything was closed because we got there on a Tuesday, and everything's closed on Tuesday and Wednesday in the off season, which is not at all anything that either of us was expecting. So we are skipping ahead a little bit. Went to Valles Cauderas, but there wasn't that much to do because it was still the off season. The next day we did a hike from Battleship Rock to Macaulay Hot Springs. I heard about the hike on a travel blog, but they didn't mention how long the hike was. It wound up only being about 2.5 miles each way, but I did have a mini meltdown on the way up because I was like, when is this hike going to end? The blog also said that the hot spring was clothing optional, and it very much was not. So if you do go, make sure to bring a bathing suit. We used the picnic tables in the day use area to make our dinner because it was more sturdy than the table that we were traveling with. A few hours of daylight left, and there was a hot spring nearby that had a very short hike, so we decided to check it out, and we loved it. We found this dispersed camping spot that was in between Valles Cauderas and Bandelier, so we went back to our spot and we got ready to go to Bandelier the next day. This was definitely not what I was expecting. It was so cool to see all of the Pueblo ruins and to learn about the history of that area. Again, I'm not going to teach you about it because it's a lot of work on my end, but look up the Pueblos at Bandelier and it's super interesting. We had a lot of fun doing a little easy hike down to the falls. The lower half of the falls trail was closed. A few people went anyway, but we didn't feel like doing anything unsafe on our trip. It was a really nice short hike, and everything is guided on the NPS app, which we used a lot on our trip. So if you are planning on doing a road trip, I definitely recommend downloading the NPS app and using the guided trails. We spent a few days in downtown Santa Fe. There wound up being a storm rolling through, so we weren't able to go up to Colorado as we had planned. And also Scott and I both felt really sick, so we stayed at International Hostel in Santa Fe, and it was actually amazing. All of the food was included in our stay at the hostel, which we very much needed. We decided to take a day trip up to Taos instead of actually going up to Taos and camping because, again, there was a storm coming through and the weather was really unpredictable. But we had a really nice time in Taos. It was such an interesting experience. We decided to check out the Taos Pueblo, which is run by the Pueblan people who live there. There's not a lot of pictures because you do have to get permission from the homeowners to take pictures of their house, which makes total sense. And we just wanted to be respectful that this is an active Pueblo that people live in. But they let us take pictures of a few things, and that's all I'm going to show. This is downtown Taos, and you have a similar architecture, and I just found it super interesting. We stopped for pizza at Pizza Outback. They have a really interesting crust, but it wasn't really for me. Scott said he liked it. And this place, the Salty Little Sweet Shop, was amazing. The owner had her dog there, and he was super cute, and she was really friendly. Everything in Taos was very cute. We really enjoyed checking it out and spending the day there and going back to the hostel after and hanging out and enjoying our free hostel food. It was just such a blessing. We were going to go to Colorado to check out the Great Sand Dunes, but we decided to scrap that to avoid a big winter storm that was coming through. So we did a little bit of trip planning at this amazing dispersed campsite that we found, and it was holy moly, so beautiful. We had one of the best sunsets, and look at this sky. I couldn't get enough. That's why I had to zoom in just to show you all of those beautiful beams of sunlight. It was incredible. I did also experience jumping cactus, which is when there's a little cactus and it attaches like Velcro to your clothes, and so I made a little prison cell for them so that we didn't accidentally step on them, and I had to wear my shoes the whole time, which you see in this video. A few people have asked me what our breaking down and setting up of the campsite usually looks like. Scott's a lot better at rolling things to be super tight, so that's why he's in charge of rolling and breaking down the tent, and I'm packing everything away. and I'm usually in charge of breaking down the kitchen and putting that stuff away. We try to keep it even, but he just does a much better job at rolling it really tightly. But we like to try to work together anyway. We're setting up here at Chaco Canyon, and this is after we found out that we somehow lost our America the Beautiful pass, which was really annoying. We had to buy a new one at Chaco Canyon. But honestly, it's worth it because it's only $80 and you can use it an unlimited amount of times at any national park and national forest in the US. So Chaco Canyon was an incredible experience in a completely different way than Grand Canyon was, because it was incredibly culturally enriching. We saw so many petroglyphs. We did not get to see that many pictographs. I didn't get to see any pictographs. Scott did. It was so incredible to see these ancient Puebloan housing structures. I also learned that the rangers who work at that park are the ones responsible for putting everything into the NPS app, which I didn't know. So the Chaco one was super behind because they only had like 2 or 3 rangers at that station. So I'm actually not too sure what each and every one is because I forgot, and there's not that much on their websites to refer back to. I couldn't remember which one was Pueblo de Arroyo or which one was the Cheritochito. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. But it was so incredible to look at this ancestral Pueblan great house and how big it was. I think this was the ceremony space, the kiva, and it was so incredible to see it and to look at all of the rooms and different water and food storage places. Again, I can't really remember what was what, and there's not that much on the app that I can find. So if you know, comment below, or maybe somebody else is good at looking it up. I think there are some rooms here that we can look into and some like food and grain storage, but none of it was on the app. So I was kind of just like, I guess this is that. And there was a few signages in front, but there really wasn't as much as other parks have. We did a few of these short out and back walks from the parking lot area to the ruins with a little bit of information, and then one day we did a longer hike to the petroglyphs, and then it was a little bit longer to go to the pictograph supernova, and I was like, we have to go to the pictograph supernova because we didn't get to see any pictographs at Bandelier. And I was like, we have to see pictographs. It's going to be so cool. And Scott was like, well, the sun's going down, so we're going to have to step up the pace. These were some of the petroglyphs that we saw, and it was really cool, but I really wanted to see a pictograph, which is the paintings. So I channeled my inner Long Island mom, and I power walked my way to that pictograph. This hike was going completely different than how I thought it was going to go. And then there was a river. And I couldn't make it over the river. Scott could. It was only a few feet wide and a few feet deep. But as you can see, I don't think I could have made that jump. As I was doing my Long Island mom power walking, we had enough time to stop and give kisses. Stopped at Aztec ruins on our way to Mesa Verde, and it was so cool. We got to go through a lot of these ruins. They also had a full recorded tour on their website, which was amazing because I could take really in-depth videos and send that to my mom because she's an elementary school social studies teacher, and this is exactly what she's teaching to her class. This is a reconstruction of the Great Kiva, and I can't believe how incredible it was to go into all of these buildings and actually hear this roof is the original roof that the ancient Pueblans put there. I could not get over it. The fact that we could walk through it. Calm down. Next, we made our way to Mesa Verde, and it was incredible. It was incredible. The views were breathtaking. So of course we used their picnic tables to make our food on our first day. And everybody walking by was like, that smells so good. And I was like, thank you. And I just noticed that this is the second video where we're using somebody else's picnic tables and making the same exact Thai dish. Since this was our first day here, we did decide to take it easy. We just did a very short hike, and then we did an overlook. We did see this adorable little fluffle. And then we went to Park Point Fire Lookout for sunset, which was listed at their sunset spot. And wow, the sky was just incredible. We couldn't get over how beautiful the sky was, and the San Juan Mountains behind us was just incredible. Next day we decided to do some hiking. We wanted to do Spruce Canyon first because I was sick of petroglyphs and Spruce Canyon actually sucked. Petroglyph Trail was such a cool trail. We got to climb and scramble on such cool things, and there was all these fun little carved staircases and overlooks and alcoves. So we had a really great time, and we wound up hiking, kind of like catching up with the same people over and over again on the trail, which was really fun. There was a small petroglyph wall, but I don't even think I took a picture because I was so over petroglyphs at that point. But I did feel like Pocahontas on this hike. I absolutely loved it. We did get a pretty good view of the spruce treehouse on the way back, which was really cool. Actually, right above that is where we were walking right before. The treehouse was closed when we visited, but it sounded like you could normally go in a group like this. This is Cliff Palace. You can only visit the cliff dwellings with a ranger on a guided tour that you have to reserve a day in advance, which we didn't know, so we didn't get to visit the cliff dwellings. As you can see, we didn't quite avoid the storms because we had to cook in a little bit of sprinkles. The next day it was forecasted for heavier rains, so we decided to leave and make our way over to Canyonlands. That's it for this video, friends. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you're into it. Next video, we're going to go to Canyonlands Island in the Sky, Arches, Canyonlands Needle, and Capitol Reef. Stay tuned. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye!